Rightio, catching up now with Anthony. But firstly, Ants, thank you very much for joining me, mate.
No, pleasure, Paul.
I find you in Queensland. You can see by the this show goes back to New Zealand, but the Kiwis might realise I've got a big heavy jacket on. I've got about 3 jumpers on underneath, and I'm inside. You got a t-shirt on, mate. You won't be in any hurry to get back to Victoria.
No, I worked a few in Melbourne yesterday morning. She was pretty cold, and different climate up here. It's beautiful.
Last night seemed a little bit wet though in Queensland, in Albion Park. Looked like a bad night.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks have been about the same, bit drizzly and things like that. So yeah, it's still warm, but it's been a bit of rain about.
Yep. Yeah, it is very, very strange times. I want to go back. I want to touch on Copy That and a couple of the other runners you had last night, or drives you had last night. But go back to Redcliffe the week before, and Krug. This show is brought to you by NZB. I think Krug definitely was a graduate of that sale. He was just awesome, wasn't he? I mean, for a 3-year-old. You know, I know he's nearly 4-year-old, but even in the old system, he'd still only be a 3-year-old. He was just awesome the other night.
Yeah, just a beautiful horse, Paul. You know, I'd obviously seen a lot of him. You know, being one of Crane's and followed him a lot. And but to actually drive him, he's just so push button. He's nearly the perfect horse to drive. He just stops and starts when you want him, and flops around in the prelim like an old horse. And then as soon as he gets up on the gate, he knows it's a full business. So yeah, just a beautiful horse. And
that's actually what it looked like going down the triangle, and it's a unique track. I have been fortunate enough to drive on it. I led on it, and I remember they all told me, don't watch that last peg down that back straight, and I'm like, yep, still went straight through it. Like it is a very unique track. He just seemed like he just took to it like the duck to water.
Yeah, he did. He just got around it beautifully and paced beautifully, and when he slid up down the back, I just thought I'd slide up and put a little bit of pressure on the leader. Didn't want him getting too easy, and he just went straight past him in 2 steps. So wasn't really the plan to do that, but he's just such a lovely horse.
You've driven a lot of good horses, and we'll get to Copy That very, very shortly. But Krug, as far as 3-year-olds go, he'd have to be right up there as some of the more exciting 3-year-olds you've driven, I'd imagine.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Like his record in New Zealand proves that. You know, to win both derbies over there is hard to do, and there's always a lot of depth in the 3-year-old ranks over there. So he's got the runs on the board, and he's been sort of well looked after. So I think he's got a great future too.
It was much publicised that you're up there for the I forget the name of the race. The Queenslanders will tell me right off, but 3 and 4-year-old championships basically. And I believe you committed to Copy That the Friday night at a trial at Albion Park, and then you go Saturday night at Redcliffe. Were you nervous about your pick after Redcliffe?
Well, I didn't really have the choice of Krug. Like Blair was always going to be coming over to drive him in the Rising Sun and the Derby. So yeah, so I was only filling in really. So but yeah, after last week, I thought, there's no way they'll beat him this week. Next week in the Rising Sun. But after driving Copy That last night, I think it might be a bit of a race now.
I think so too. Copy That is owned by Merv Butterworth too, a person I've had a lot to do with, and he's a very parochial person, so I would imagine you've had a couple of good phone calls from Merv. Going into the race, you drew awkwardly, then the rain heavens opened up, much publicised by a lot of people that they said that Copy That was only a leader. What was your confidence level when you were going into the race early on?
Yeah, well, I thought long and hard about it during the week and spoke to Merv and Ray about it. And we sort of decided that we'll just take our chance from 1 to 2nd row. Over a mile, it's so hard if you pull back and get back to last. And, you settle down, you're 50 metres off the leader. So, I just thought it's the best option to do that, take our chance. And, if he didn't get a run, he didn't get a run. And, that way he wouldn't have a hard run. And, next week's the big race. So, that was the plan, and we just got lucky. They're doing pretty hard that first quarter, but then they did back off quite a bit the next couple. So, just lucky got a bit of clear air turn of a home.
For a horse that touted as only a leader in that, watching him in the run and trying conditions, and as a horse, one of the ones you drove later on, looked like there was a lot of kickback coming up. It looked like he just took to it to a duck to water. He wasn't one bit worried about it. He didn't seem to over race at all or do anything silly.
No, he's actually beautiful last night. Like I spoke to Morris McHenry the day before just to get a few sort of ins and outs on him, and and I'd seen him race a bit too, and he could over race a bit at times, but last night I sort of had to buzz him off the gate to keep on the ones back, and he was just beautiful. He relaxed, and paced really good too, which has been a problem for him in the past at times. So I think he's maturing and working out what it's all about now.
Can you talk us through, like I gave you a tweet, I suppose, a compliment through Twitter that, like hats off, because how you extricated off the fence, it looks like you've just pushed out, but there is an art to it. There's not a lot of people can actually do what you did last night so successfully, and it's a unique skill. And to do it on a Kiwi horse that's racing in Australia for the first time, and I'm not, this show goes to New Zealand, it's the tempo in Australia can be a lot different. So I would imagine Copy that's taken a lot in. The way you were able to extricate and get him out to the outside, is there something that you look for on the person outside of you and how they're travelling, or was it just, you just said, right, it's just instinct and you follow your instinct?
Yeah, it's a little bit of instinct. I've seen around the bit, I had two options, either stay on the fence and wait for the run on the lane, but, I had three horses in front of me, so I thought that, and going to need a bit of luck for that to happen. But, yeah, I just noticed Pete McMullen outside me, just sort of past the 400, he just sort of lost the back of the horse in front of him, so... when you're driving a horse that's travelling so good, you can sort of, get into gaps pretty quick, and he was the same. But then you got to be careful you don't knock them down, because I was sort of far enough ahead that my wheel was against his leg, sort of thing. So you got to be wary of that. There's a lot happening all at once. And the main thing is to keep him balanced and keep the momentum up too. And he had to come sideways, from the fence to 4 or 5 wide virtually, and a few strides, and then pick up his speed again. So it's not easy to do. So it was a good effort by the horse, yeah. And
that's more or less what I'm trying to probably get to, because it is a skill. I think Darren Hancock, I would put in a class of his own, probably until last night. I reckon you've got up there with Darren. But Darren used to be, he used to drive around Harold Park, and he could be 3 and 4 back the fence, and the next minute he's the first horse 3 deep, and he's just charging away from him. He had a unique, I suppose, way of doing it. But like what you said then, you have to keep them balanced. You're on a wet track. So for the young drivers out there and people that are listening, are tuning into this, you just drive that horse at that point of time. You don't necessarily worry about winning. Your winning move came from when you got your last 200, then you try and balance him up. But when you actually extricate and you're just trying to get him out wide and just keep him balanced and in his motion.
Yeah, that's right, Paul. Yeah, as I said, not all horses can do it, and you got to have a bit of luck with the horse outside. Just sort of, when you move out, they sort of move out with you. And it's a bit of a skill. We were brought up in New Zealand. Well, I was. Well, when I started driving, we didn't have a push out rule. You could push out any stage of the race, and I used to drive against some tough, hard old drivers, and they would push out. And if you weren't virtually climbing over the helmet in front of you, you'd get pushed out. So it was a good way to learn, and I think the same was here especially back in the day when you were racing on the smaller tracks, that you had to be up there and keeping up, but otherwise you would be pushed out. But racing has changed. We're going so fast now, and the bigger tracks, that it's not necessarily a skill that's used as often as it used to be. So these days, especially a place like Menangle or Melton, they're going so fast that there's actually very little pushing and shoving anymore.
I can imagine in New Zealand back in the day, it was giggling when you were saying it. It would have been daunting with some of those drivers. We were talking just there before that Ricky May has driven 3,000 winners today, and you were telling me that he's only the 3rd driver in New Zealand history to do that. Maurice McKendry and a couple of the other guys, Tony Hurley, they're strong drivers, aren't they? They know how to move, they know how to shift people and do what they like.
Yeah. Right throughout the years, been some great drivers from New Zealand, and fantastic achievement from Ricky. He's been a great guy, great friend of mine all my life, and great competitor. And especially what he went through last year, to bounce back and get the 3,000, it's a wonderful effort. But but even when I was a kid, I'd be driving against guys like Jack Smolensky and Felix Newfield and Jack Carmichael and my 2 grandfathers, and they'd look the other way and push you out. So it was good learning. I guess it was like driving against Brian Gaff, when he was, he's still going great, but, when he was at his peak, they were just tough, hard drivers. Very fair, they were fair, but tough men. Yeah,
very, very true. Did you think you could win on Copy that at the top of the straight?
No, it wasn't really till I got out and got him balanced that then I sort of looked across and I thought, the leader's not too far away from me. So, no, I was, massively surprised, really, that he could pick them up, and, a bit stunned, really.
Was he what you were expecting to drive?
Well, I drove him at the trials last week, and he gave me a mixed feel. He went quite good, and but he did a couple of things wrong. And I was actually lucky. I spoke to Blair Orange earlier in the week, and he'd driven him a fair bit, and spoke to Morris McKendry, and they told me a couple of things about him that not to worry about. Really, he said that's him. He'll do it. Just drive him through it, and so that sort of perked me up a bit. So, but yeah, once you get in the race, you sort of got to ride the race sometimes instead of the horse, and so yeah, it was. No, I was pretty stunned when I crossed the line, really.
He has a good win, and he's going to be mighty hard to beat, especially now that he doesn't have to be a leader, as everyone says, and that probably gives you options as well too, that you don't have to fly the arm to try and lead, and because you can break that mould a bit with him.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like as you said, it was in everybody's mind that he was a leader, but but I remember going back as a 3-year-old, he just got beaten in the Soul Stakes final, coming from well off the pace, and so I knew he could do it. So, but last night gives you that confidence that you just drive the race in there. Yeah.
He's a deceiving horse, Ant. I got to see him when I was in New Zealand just recently for the Weanling sales, and he was racing that day, and he probably looks a little bit on the small side on the track, not tiny by any stretch, but when you actually go and see him, he's quite a nuggety, strong horse, isn't he? Like he's bigger than what you think, but like how good could he be?
Oh, I think he could be anything. He's running the Auckland Cup this year was fantastic. He never stopped working. He sort of over raced outside the leader, and just went down. So that sort of proved that he could handle 2 mile, a hard 2 miles. So he's a type of horse that he could win any race going around. He's obviously not going to win every race, but anytime he's there, he's got a chance of winning.
You and I were just discussing off air that there's one race you haven't won. Is Copy That the sort of horse that could win a Victoria Cup? This is a loaded question too.
Yeah, he could win the right, but I don't think he'll come because the New Zealand Cup's just after that. So, but I've got a pretty good backup on Wolf Stride.
that was actually the reason, because Ant was saying to me prior to the interview that he hasn't been able to win that race, the Victoria Cup. It's the only feature race you haven't won. There's a new race on the radar this year at Queensland. You're a big chance of taking it out in its first year, that's for sure.
Yeah, we'll be trying hard, Paul.
I'm sure you will. Merv will be very happy to hear that too. Don't you worry about that. The rest of your night, Ansel, a couple of horses I did want to ask you about. I'm just trying to find them professionally done this interview, as always. There was this one for Ray that was Copy That. A couple of races later that started short enough in the market, just didn't look like he handled the track. I can't find his name. How good am I going? You'll know.
Yeah, Tommy Lincoln.
Yes.
Yeah, he just got left in the death. Got in the 1-1 early, and then got left in the death about the mile, and he just over raced a bit. He's a big pulling sort of horse, and didn't really cope with it all that well. So hopefully if he gets a front line draw next time, he can sort of stroll to the front, and I'm sure he'll take some beating. He
just got a bit wobbly around the bend and in the straight. I just thought he just looked a bit awkward in himself. And then the other one, very, very quickly, American Dealer. It was a peculiar run. Coming at the bell, you give a slap on the backside. They've run a 33 quarter, and you dropped off. And then 27.5, 27.5, and you're closing. You're probably unlucky. The other horse had a real soft run.
Yeah, he's a funny horse. He very relaxed. He's very casual about everything. And as you said, I was sort of made aware of that before I drove him last night. It's the first time I drove him last night. But yeah, he got off the bit a couple of times. I had to sort of chase him up and had to get the plugs out down the back. And but as you said, he finished off great. So I think he'd be the type of horse you'll go into the better races and be better, because following a faster pace. And I think he's type of one of those horses. He's raced at a very good level in New Zealand and performed well. So I think if they go hard, and it'll take a bit of the speed out of the others, but it won't worry him.
What is he targeted at? Is he targeted at Derbies, or has he just come over because Ray's brought a couple others over?
No, he's here for the Queensland Derby, and I think they got the Southeast Derby the week before that, which is 2 weeks last night. So yeah, that's his main aim. But obviously we'll have to contend with Krug too. So
yeah,
won't be easy. Won't be easy for him.
No, definitely won't. He looks tiny. Is he as small as what he looks on the track?
Yeah, he's not a very big fella, but he's a beautiful horse, and just a real casual attitude. So hopefully with the racer over here, he'll sort of wake up a bit, and he said he just needs to travel a little bit better mid-race. He's
a bit like a lot of you Kiwis, pretty laid back, just take things in your stride and don't worry too much.
That's right.
Very, very quickly, mate. Wolf Stride, where's he at?
Yep, he had a good 6 weeks out after he won that big race at Wagga, and so he's been back in a while now, getting through a fair bit of work, and probably about a month away from the trials, so he'll have a start or two first, but the first main name's the Kilmore Cup and then into the Victoria Cup.
Kilmore Cup, Ben and the crew will be rapt to hear that. That's great that you're targeting a race like that, because it is a time-honoured race that probably been getting lost. Maybe now with the season change, coming back to being one of the first cups and people can really plan for a good summer, it might be one of the key races on the program again. I hope so anyway. Yeah,
and it leads in really well this year to the Victoria Cup. I think it's 2 weeks before, so I'm sure they'll get a great feel for it.
Absolutely. And thank you very much. Enjoy that warm weather, and I'm glad for all the Queenslanders too that COVID's starting to get under control a little bit. You're going to be back in Victoria, I believe, tomorrow, so well done. Enjoy the carnival, and congratulations on a great win on Copy That.
No, thanks very much, Paul. Anytime.